Good morning, students, and welcome to our fourth quarter English 10 Week 1 discussion. This is Aljibuy and your English 10 subject teacher. Okay, so for the first week, we will be discussing all about technical terms used in research. But before that, let me introduce to you our objectives for this lesson. So in this lesson, you are expected to A. Define research. B. Familiarize the technical terms used in research. C. Distinguish technical terms used in research. And D. Formulate interview guide questions or survey questionnaire. Okay, so what is research? So research establishes facts and new findings through a systematic investigation to contribute to an existing body of knowledge. Meaning, it is a creative and systematic work undertaken to increase the stock of knowledge. So it involves the collection, organization, and analysis of information to increase understanding of a topic or issue. So a research project may be an expansion on past work in the field. Okay, so these are the technical terms used in research. So we have research title, abstract, introduction, literature review, methodology, discussion, results, cultural mapping, interview guide, questionnaire, survey, plagiarism, reference, and appendix. All these terms is being included in a research. Okay, so let's discuss each one of them. Research title. So this is a subject or topic that researcher finds interesting when conducting research. This needs to be narrowed down, which will focus on the main idea. So the title summarizes the main idea or ideas of your study. So a good title contains the fewest possible words that adequately describe the contents and or purpose of your research paper. So the title is without doubt that the part of a paper that is read the most, and it is usually read first. Now let's talk about abstract. So an abstract summarizes all sections and helps readers decide whether or not to read the entire report. So an abstract is a short summary of your completed research. So it is intended to describe your work without going into great detail. Abstract should be self-contained and concise, explaining your work as briefly and clearly as possible. Next, we have introduction. So this presents background information, scope, and focus of the research paper. So the introduction to a research paper is where you set up your topic and approach for the reader. It has several key goals, which is to present the topic and get the reader interested, and provide background or summarize existing research. Okay, let's proceed to literature review. So this provides a review of what others have written or researched on concerning the topic. So in some research reports, concept literature, research literature, theoretical framework, conceptual framework, research hypothesis, and definition of terms are also included. So a literature review is a survey of scholarly sources such as books, journal articles, and theses, so related to a specific topic or research question. It is often written as part of a thesis, dissertation, or research paper in order to situate your work in relation to existing knowledge. Methodology. So this explains how the research was conducted. So this includes the research design, population and sampling procedure, research instrument, data gathering procedure, and data analysis procedure. So a research methodology is an outline of how given piece of research is carried out. So it defines the techniques or procedures that are used to identify and analyze information regarding a specific research topic. Okay, so in discussion, this presents the information gathered through the research. So the discussion section is one of the final parts of a research paper in which an author describes, analyzes, and interprets their findings. So they explain the significance of those results and tie everything back to the research questions or question. Okay, so for conclusion, so this provides the summary of the research. So it brings the report to closure by giving emphasis to ideas stated previously. So the conclusion of a research paper is where you wrap up your ideas and leave the reader with a strong final impression. So it has several key goals. So these are to restate the research problem addressed in the paper and summarizes your overall arguments or findings. So that is for conclusion. And then for the results, so this contains other related information such as graphs, charts, tables, and list of your research. So the results section is where you report the findings of your study based upon the methodology or methodologies. So you applied to gather information. The results section should be or should state the findings of the research arranged in a logical sequence without bias or interpretation. Okay, let's talk about cultural mapping. So this refers to a research tool to holistically understand the cultural assets of a place based on the local knowledge of the people. In other words, cultural mapping is a mode of inquiry and a methodological tool that aims to make visible the ways local stories, practices, relationships, memories, and rituals constitute places as meaningful location. So, cultural mapping provides an integrated picture of the cultural character, significance, and workings of a place in order to help communities recognize, celebrate, and support cultural diversity for economic, social, and regional development. Okay, so for interview, so this is a conversational practice where knowledge is produced through the interaction between an interviewer and an interviewee, or a group of interviewees. So an interview is a conversation for gathering information. A research interview involves an interviewer who coordinates the process of the conversation and asks questions, and an interviewee who responds to those questions of the interviewer. Okay, so for you to have a good or wonderful interview with your interviewee, you need to have this interview guide. So this summarizes the content that researchers cover during interviews. At one extreme, it may provide very minimal directions, leading to less structured interviews that are designed primarily to explore the participants' own perspective on the research topic. So creating an interview guide helps interview research in a number of ways. So an interview guide is simply a list of the high-level topics that you plan on covering in the interview with the high-level questions that you want to answer under each topic. Questionnaire. So this is a set of questions to gather information in a survey. So it may be in a form of open-end format that allows the respondents to answer in any way he or she wishes in his or her term. So multiple choice format that presents a question which is followed by a set of options predetermined by the researcher, or checklist format that is used exclusively or with some use of free response option. In other words, a questionnaire is a research instrument consisting of a series of questions for the purpose of gathering information from respondents through survey or statistical study. So the questionnaire was invented by the Statistical Society of London in 1838. So these are the tips for formulating questions. So first one is to pose open rather than closed questions. Then second, sequence interview questions from broad to narrow. You should start from the general to specific. And then avoid the inclusion of possible responses in questions. Then pose one question at a time. And lastly, avoid posing multi-part questions. So those are the tips for formulating questions in an interview. Survey. So this is a statistical analysis of answers to a poll of a sample of a population, for example, to determine opinions or knowledge. Survey in research is defined as the collection of information from a sample of individuals through their responses to questions. Okay, so we have tips for writing a great survey questionnaire. So these are: first is to focus on asking closed-ended questions. Second, keep your survey questions neutral. Third, keep a balanced set of answer choices. And fourth, don't ask for two things at once. Then fifth, keep your questions different from each other. And sixth, let most of your questions be optional to answer. Now let's talk about plagiarism. So this occurs when ideas, information, and even pictures are used without proper acknowledgement of the original sources. So providing in-text citation or parenthetical text from another source is a surefire method to avoid plagiarism. So plagiarism is presenting someone else's work or ideas as your own, with or without their consent. So by incorporating it into your work without full acknowledgement. So all published and unpublished material, whether in manuscript, printed, or electronic form, is covered under this definition. So we have here an example of running text and within parentheses, which are parts of the literature review. So for example, for running text, we have according to Shane 2021. So use of in-text citation shows that the idea is not yours and that you acknowledge its rightful sources by using the according to Shane year 2021. And we have within parentheses. So the use of in-text citation shows that the idea is not yours and that you acknowledge its original sources, like this one with open and close parentheses, Shane 2001. So that is an example of running texts and within parentheses. Okay, now let's talk about reference. So this is a list of all sources used in research. In other words, referencing can be described as giving credit with citation to the source of information used in one's work. So research is a build-up on what other people have previously done, thus referencing helps to relate your own works to previous work. And lastly, we have appendix. So this contains related information such as graphs, charts, tables, and lists that you use in your research. So an appendix contains supplementary material that is not an essential part of the text itself, but which may be helpful in providing a more comprehensive understanding of the research problem, or it is information that is too cumbersome to be included in the body of the paper. And that is all for this week's discussion. Thank you for listening, and may God bless you on your activity for this lesson. And if you want to access this video again, You can access this on GAITF LCMS platform at www.lcms.gaitf.com. So this is your teacher, Aljay Buhian, signing off.